My daughter-in-law forgot to hang up the phone. I heard every single word. My mother-in-law is a burden. I stood there in silence. I sold my house for $980,000. I transferred everything. I disappeared. They came back from Europe smiling until they realized the key did not fit in the lock, the house empty, the note, a surprise. This is what a burden does. My name is Grace Montgomery. I am 68 years old. And on that Tuesday in October, while I was rolling out dough for a chicken pot pie in the kitchen of what I believed was my home, I heard 3 words that killed the woman I used to be. She is an unbearable burden. Valerie's voice cut through the wall like a sharp knife. I let the ladle drop into the pot. The steam burned my hand, but I felt nothing. I only listened. I swear to you, Fern, I cannot take it anymore. My mother-in-law breathes, and it drives me crazy. She eats, she sleeps, she exists, and she does it all in my house. My heart stopped. My hands trembled over the cold marble of the counter. Ryan says to have patience that soon, she is 68. Nature will do its work, and when that happens, we will sell everything and move to Florida. This house is worth over $1.5 million. She put in almost $500,000 when we moved in, but it is in our name. Legally, it is ours. I felt the floor moving beneath my feet. Valerie let out a laugh, a light laugh like someone commenting on the weather. In the meantime, let her keep taking care of the kids and cleaning. At least she is good for something. She hung up. I stood paralyzed in front of the stove with my hands stained with flour and my soul torn to pieces. 3 years. 3 years living under this roof. 3 years believing that I was building something with my son, that we were family. But I was not family. I was an investment that was taking too long to die. I took a deep breath. The smell of rosemary and chicken filled the kitchen. But I was no longer there. Something inside me broke, something that would never be the same again. Because in that moment, I understood a brutal truth. My son, Ryan, the boy I nursed, the boy I cared for when he had pneumonia at 7 years old, the boy I hugged through every defeat, that man no longer existed, or perhaps he never existed the way I believed. I turned off the stove. I covered the pot. I took off the embroidered apron my mother gave me 40 years ago. And in the silence of that kitchen, I made the most important decision of my life. I was not going to wait for nature to do its work. I was going to disappear, but not in the way they expected. I went up to my room, the smallest one in the house, of course, and I locked the door. I took out my cell phone with shaking hands and dialed a number I had not used in months. Mr. Stevens, this is Grace Montgomery. I need to see you tomorrow morning. It is urgent. Is it about my house? Well, about what I thought was my house. My voice sounded strange, firm. I almost did not recognize it. That night, Ryan and Valerie returned from dinner out. They came in laughing. He was carrying a box of French pastries. For her, obviously. They saw me in the living room knitting a gray wool scarf. "Did you eat dinner already, Mom?" asked Ryan without really looking at me. "Yes, son." "Enjoy your evening." Valerie did not even turn around. She went straight up to her room, glued to her phone. Ryan sat in front of me for a moment, devoured 2 slices of cake, checked his phone, and yawned. "I am going to sleep. I have an early meeting tomorrow." "Rest well, son." He gave me a kiss on the forehead, mechanical, cold. When I heard his door close, I stopped knitting, and in the darkness of that living room, I smiled, because they did not know it yet, but the game had just changed. And this time, I was making the rules. If this story has touched your heart, welcome to our story. Family, subscribe to the channel so you do not miss any life stories like this one. Hit the like button and stay with me until the end, because what comes next, nobody saw coming. What had Grace discovered that gave her so much confidence? What plan was forming in her mind while everyone slept peacefully? The next morning, I woke up at 5. Not because I had to, but because I had been doing it for 3 years. Valerie expected her coffee at 6 o'clock sharp. The children woke up at 6:30 and I, like a good burden, had to be ready to serve. But that morning, while I was grinding the coffee and heating the milk, my mind was in a completely different place. I was remembering with a clarity that hurt. It all started 3 years ago when I became a widow. Robert, my husband of 42 years, died of a heart attack while pruning the hydrangeas in our garden. He fell among the purple flowers he loved so much. I found him. He still had the shears in his hand. The following months were hell. The apartment in the city felt huge and empty. Every corner screamed his absence. The cup of coffee that I no longer filled, the newspaper that no one read at breakfast, the smell of his cologne fading from the pillows. Ryan came to visit me every week. Worried, he said, "You cannot be alone, Mom. This house is too big for you." Valerie always accompanied him, smiling. Perfect. With her brown hair always impeccable and her manicured nails freshly done. "Grace, you should consider moving in with us," she suggested one day, taking my hand. "You have 2 beautiful grandchildren who adore you, and we need more space. We could buy a bigger house." Together. That word sounded like music to my broken ears. "Think about it, Mom," Ryan insisted. "You sell your apartment. We put in what we have saved and we buy something nice. A real house. With a yard for the kids, with space for everyone." I did not want to be alone. I did not want to keep waking up in that silence that was slowly killing me. So I accepted. I sold the apartment in the city for $500,000. It was my nest egg, the fruit of decades of Robert's work as an engineer and mine as an elementary school teacher. Every dollar represented years of effort, of sacrifice, of fulfilled dreams. Ryan found the perfect house in Greenwich, colonial style, 3 floors, 6 bedrooms, a garden with big oak trees. It cost $750,000. "We will put in the rest, Mom, and we will remain the owners, Valerie and I, for legal reasons. It is simpler for taxes for future paperwork. But it belongs to all of us, obviously." Obviously. I signed the papers without a lawyer. I trusted. Because he was my son. Because after 42 years of marriage, I believed in one's word, in family, in blood. I moved in on a Thursday in March. I brought my furniture, my photographs, my memories. Valerie assigned me the room on the 3rd floor, the smallest one, the one that faced the water tank and had dampness in a corner. "It is more private for you, Grace. You will have your space." The first few months were tolerable. I cooked. I helped with Sam and Emily, my grandchildren of 6 and 4 years old. I cleaned. I organized. But little by little, the smiles turned into orders. "Grace, the kids have school early. Could you make them breakfast?" "Grace, I have a meeting. Can you stay with Emily? She has a fever." "Grace, my mom is coming to eat today. Make that pot roast she likes." Ryan worked 12 hours a day. Valerie went out with friends, went to the gym, took Pilates classes. I stayed. I always stayed. One day, I asked to use the living room to host my friends from the book club. Valerie frowned. "It is just that I have a new carpet, Grace. I prefer that you do not bring visitors. You know how older people are. They spill things. Older people. As if she were 80 and I was her employee. Another time, I wanted to put my photographs on the shelf in the living room. Photos of Robert of Ryan as a child of our trips. They do not match the decoration, mother-in-law. Better leave them in your room. My room, never our house. Always my room. On my 67th birthday, Valerie organized a dinner. She invited her family, her friends. Ryan arrived late from work. There was no cake for me. "I forgot to buy it, Grace." "Sorry." 2 weeks later, Valerie turned 38. Ryan gifted her a designer handbag that cost $2,000. There was a 3-tier cake, a band, expensive champagne. I baked the pecan cookies for the guests. No one thanked me. That night, lying in my narrow bed on the third floor, listening to the dripping of the water tank, I wondered at what moment I had become invisible. But I did nothing, because he was my son, because I was afraid of being alone again, because at 67 years old, where was I going to go? Then came that Tuesday in October and that phone conversation, and everything changed. Now as I poured Valerie's coffee into her Italian porcelain cup, I smiled inwardly, because finally I understood something fundamental. It was not me who needed them. It was they who had built their life on my $500,000. And that house they believed was theirs still had many secrets to discover. What documents was Grace keeping that neither Ryan nor Valerie knew existed? What would Mr. Stevens discover that would change the whole game? Mr. Stevens, or Steve as Robert called him, was 74 years old and had an office that smelled of old books and strong coffee. He had been Robert's best friend for 30 years, a lawyer specializing in family and estate law. When I entered his office that Wednesday morning, he left his glasses on the desk and looked at me with those gray eyes that always saw more than one said. "Grace, it has been months. What is happening?" I sat in front of him. I took out of my purse a yellow folder that I had hidden under my mattress for 3 years, the folder that Ryan thought I had lost. "I need to know if I still have rights to my money." Mr. Stevens opened the folder. Inside were all the receipts, the sales contract of my apartment, the bank transfers to Ryan's name for $500,000, the emails where he promised me that the house would belong to everyone, the text messages where he confirmed that my contribution was the foundation of everything. Mr. Stevens read in silence for 20 minutes. His face showed no emotion, but his fingers tapped on the desk, a sign that he was thinking fast. Finally, he spoke. "Grace, why did you keep all this? Robert always said trust is beautiful, but papers are sacred." Mr. Stevens smiled sadly. "Your husband was a wise man." He closed the folder and looked straight at me. "Legally, the house is in your son and daughter-in-law's name, but these documents prove that there was a verbal agreement backed by written evidence. We can argue that your contribution was a loan, not a donation. And loans are collected." My heart beat faster. "How long would it take?" "If we act fast and find an immediate buyer, 10 days, maybe less 10 days. Ryan and Valerie were going to Europe in 2 weeks. They would be gone for 3 weeks. Do it," I said, without trembling. Mr. Stevens leaned back in his chair. "Grace, are you sure he is your son?" "Precisely for that reason, I need to do it. Because I still love him enough to teach him that his mother is not a disposable object. I left that office with a plan, with a purpose, but also with a pain that burned my chest, because I remembered. I remembered when Sam, my oldest grandson, turned 6. I baked his favorite cake, vanilla with strawberries. I got up at 4 in the morning so it would be perfect. When the guests arrived, Valerie presented a store-bought cake from an expensive bakery. It is just that my mother-in-law's looks very homemade. My cake ended up in the basement refrigerator. No one tasted it. I remembered the nights when Emily cried from nightmares, and I rocked her. I sang her the same songs I sang to Ryan. She would fall asleep in my arms, trusting safe. But the next morning, Valerie would tell me, "Do not spoil her so much, Grace. She is becoming dependent." I remembered when I got sick with the flu high fever chills. I stayed in bed for 2 days. Valerie knocked on my door once. "Are you better yet? It is just that I need you to watch the kids. I have an appointment at the spa." Ryan came up that night with a cold tea and 2 aspirins. "Take care of yourself, Mom. We need you active tomorrow." No one asked if I had eaten. No one brought me soup. No one sat by my side. And I stayed quiet, because I was afraid of being abandoned, afraid of confirming what I already knew, that they had stopped seeing me as a person a long time ago. But the straw that broke the camel's back came one Saturday afternoon. Valerie organized a family gathering. Her parents came, her brothers, her cousins. The house was full of elegant, perfumed, loud people. I prepared appetizers for hours, sliders, spinach dip, guacamole salsas. I stayed in the kitchen like the cook I was. At one moment, I went out to the terrace to serve more lemonade. I heard the voice of Valerie's mother, Patricia. "And does your mother-in-law still live here, honey?" "Yes, Mom," replied Valerie with a theatrical sigh. "Ryan does not have the heart to kick her out. But between you and me, she is heavy, she takes up space, and the kids are already big. They do not need her that much. And can she not rent a little apartment with her pension?" Valerie laughed. "Her Social Security barely covers her medicines. No, we are stuck with her. Stuck." I stood paralyzed behind the sliding door with the pitcher of lemonade shaking in my hands. Ryan was there listening to everything. I saw his face in profile. He said nothing, absolutely nothing. He took a sip of his beer and changed the subject. That night, after cleaning everything, I went up to my room. I sat on the edge of my bed and looked out the window at the lights of the town. And I made a decision. I was not going to beg for a place that I bought with my own money. I was not going to beg for love from those who saw me as a burden. I was not going to wait for nature to do its work. I was going to reclaim my life, my money, my dignity. And if that meant breaking the illusion of family that kept me a prisoner, then so be it. How would Ryan react when he discovered that his mother was not the naive old woman he thought? What would Mr. Stevens find in the legal documents that would change the whole landscape? The announcement came on a Sunday during breakfast. I was serving pancakes when Valerie walked into the kitchen with her iPad in her hand, and that smile I knew too well, the smile of someone who is about to get what she wants. "Grace, we have exciting news," she said, showing me the screen. "Plane tickets. Mexico, Paris, Barcelona, Rome. We are going to Europe for 3 weeks, Ryan and I. We need to reconnect as a couple." Ryan walked in behind her, adjusting his tie. He did not even look at me. "We leave on November 8th. Mom. We return on December 1st. 3 weeks?" I asked, although I already knew the answer. "Yes, it is our 10th anniversary. We deserve it." Valerie poured coffee into her cup, ignoring that I still had not eaten breakfast. "The kids stay with you, obviously." "Sam has swimming lessons on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Emily goes to the dentist on the 15th. I left everything written down on the refrigerator." "And the dogs," added Ryan, checking his cell phone. "We had 2 golden retrievers, Max and Luna, beautiful but demanding. They also stay with you, Mom. It is only a month. You can do it." Valerie left her cup in the sink. For me to wash, of course. "Oh, and we need you not to use the main living room while we are not here. We just put in new flooring. We do not want it to get scratched with the kids' games." They both left. Ryan to his office, Valerie to her yoga class. I stayed alone in the kitchen with the pancakes getting cold on the plate. 3 weeks taking care of kids' dogs, house alone while they strolled through Europe spending money that was partly mine. I looked for my cell phone and checked my messages. Mr. Stevens had texted me. "Grace, I found something important in the deeds. Call me urgently." I called him from the garden where no one could hear me. "Grace, I have good news. The house has property tax debts of $5,000. Ryan never paid them. There is also a fine from the water company for $800. That gives us more legal pressure. Also," he paused, "I found a buyer, a client of mine, who is looking for exactly that area. He is willing to pay $980,000 in cash. Immediate closing." My heart pounded hard. "When? We can start the legal process tomorrow. With the documents you have, we can force the sale to recover your investment plus interest. The law is on your side." I hung up and sat on the wrought iron bench in the garden. The hydrangeas were blooming, purple, beautiful. Robert would have loved them. That night, Ryan and Valerie dined out, again. They returned around 11, laughing with bags from an expensive boutique. Valerie went directly up to her room. Ryan stopped in the kitchen where I was finishing cleaning. "Mom, can you iron my shirts for the trip? There are like 12 of them." "Sure, son." He gave me a kiss on the forehead. mechanical, empty. You are the best. I do not know what we would do without you." He left, and I stayed there with the dish towel in my hands, feeling how something inside me hardened definitely. I do not know what we would do without you. Soon they would know. 2 days later, while Valerie was at the beauty salon and Ryan at work, I went up to their room. Not to snoop, only to confirm something. On the dresser was his credit card statement. I could not help but see it. The trip to Europe, $20,000, hotels 5 stars, business class flights, private tours, dinners at Michelin-starred restaurants. My monthly Social Security check was $1,200. With that, I bought my medicines and my personal expenses. They were going to spend in 3 weeks what I did not earn in 3 years, with money that was partly mine. That night, I heard another conversation, this time intentional. I stayed in the hallway while Valerie talked on the phone with her sister. "I tell you, she already has me fed up. This old woman thinks she is the owner. The other day, she wanted to give an opinion on how I educate my kids. I had to remind her who pays the tuitions here." Silence. Obviously, she cannot leave. Where would she go? She has nothing. The house is ours. Her pension is miserable. She totally depends on us. Another pause. Ryan says that when she is no longer here, we sell everything and move to Florida. We even saw condos facing the ocean. They cost like $700,000, but with what we get from this house and what she will leave behind, it is perfect for us. I leaned against the wall. My legs were shaking. Yes, I know it sounds ugly, but it is reality. We invested her money and now it is ours. That is how things work. She already lived her life. We are just starting. She hung up. I went down the stairs in silence. I reached my room on the 3rd floor. I locked the door. I sat on the floor with my back against the wall, and for the first time in 3 years, I cried. I cried for the mother I was, for the sleepless nights when Ryan had chickenpox, for the uniforms I sewed by hand because we did not have money, for the lunch boxes I prepared for 12 years of elementary and high school, for the hugs I gave when he failed math, for the college scholarship I paid for by cleaning houses and working double shifts. I cried for Robert, who taught me that family is sacred, but dignity is non-negotiable. I cried for the foolish old woman I thought I was. But when I finished crying, I got up. I washed my face. I combed my hair. I put on my gray wool sweater that Robert gave me on our 35th anniversary. And I dialed Mr. Stevens' number. Proceed with everything. I want the house to be sold before they return from Europe. I want that when they put their key in that lock, it does not enter. I want them to know what it feels like to lose everything in a second. Are you completely sure, Grace? I have never been more sure of anything in my life. How would Grace manage to sell a house that was not in her name? What surprises would Mr. Stevens find in the laws that would make the impossible possible? Mr. Stevens arrived at the house the next day. I rang the doorbell as if he were just any salesman. It was Thursday morning. Ryan was at work. Valerie had gone out with her friends for breakfast. It was just the kids and me. "Good morning, Grace, mister," Stevens said in a low voice when I opened the door. He was carrying a brown leather briefcase and that serious look of a lawyer who knows every move on the board. I showed him into the kitchen. Sam and Emily were watching cartoons in the playroom. Mr. Stevens took out documents and spread them on the table. "This is what we have," he began. "Your contribution of $500,000 is completely documented. Direct bank transfers to Ryan with the concept, contribution for purchase of family home. The text messages where he confirms that the house would be shared. And this," he held up a yellowish paper. "It is the email where Ryan promised you that everything would be for the family, by the family. Is it enough? More than enough. In law, when there is proof of economic contribution with intent of co-ownership, even if the title is in the name of third parties, one can make a claim. But there is a faster and more definitive path." I leaned forward. The tax debts. Ryan owes $5,000 in property taxes and $800 in water bills. If those debts are not paid, the county can place a lien. I can initiate a lawsuit for loan recovery. With a judge I know, let us say he is sensitive to cases of family abuse. Mr. Stevens looked at me intently. Grace, this is legal war. Once you start, there is no turning back. I do not want to turn back. I signed the documents right there. My hand did not tremble even once. I have a buyer, continued Mr. Stevens. Mr. Peterson, a client of mine for 20 years. He is looking for a house exactly in this area for his daughter, who is getting married in January. He offers $980,000. Immediate payment. Closing in 7 days. 7 days. If we act now. We file the lawsuit tomorrow, Friday. The court issues a provisional order on Monday. By Wednesday, with the tax debts as pressure, we can force the liquidation. You recover your investment plus legal interest at 3% annually. It is 3 years, approximately $45,000 additional. I did the mental calculations. $500,000 plus $45,000, a total of $545,000. And the rest of the money from the sale, it goes to pay the tax debts and legal costs. Whatever is left over is technically Ryan and Valerie's, but I doubt much will be left after paying everything. Perfect. I need this to be absolutely confidential, I told him. They leave for Europe on November 8th. That is in 6 days. I need the sale to be finalized while they are gone. Mr. Stevens smiled, a small smile, almost imperceptible. Grace, you are more of a strategist than I thought. Robert would be proud. When Mr. Stevens left, I stood alone in the kitchen. I looked around. This house that I thought was mine, these tiles that I chose, that granite counter where I kneaded thousands of rolls, the garden where I planted mint and rosemary. I did not feel nostalgia. I felt relief. The following days were a perfect play. On Friday, Mr. Stevens filed the lawsuit, loan recovery with documentary evidence. The court admitted it immediately. On Saturday, Valerie asked me to wash all her clothes for the trip. 15 outfits, designer dresses, silk blouses. I did it all. I ironed every garment with care. She did not even say thank you. On Sunday, Ryan handed me a list of instructions. 3 pages, schedules for the kids, specific meals, routines for the dogs, medicines, emergency contacts. Mom, this is very important. We do not want anything to go wrong while we are not here. Do not worry, my son. Everything will be under control. On Monday, the provisional order arrived from the court. Mr. Stevens called me at 10 in the morning. It is done. The judge ordered a preventive freeze of the property. Ryan and Valerie will receive the notification, but they will be in the air headed to Paris. I smiled. Perfect. On Tuesday, Valerie packed huge suitcases, 6 pieces. Ryan was checking travel documents, passports, reservations. I made sandwiches for them to eat at the airport. Grace, really take good care of the kids, said Valerie, touching up her makeup in front of the hallway mirror. And do not invite anyone to the house. You know I do not like strangers here. Of course, Valerie. And if something urgent happens, call us, although with the time difference. Well, try to solve things yourself. Ryan brought down the suitcases. He gave me a quick hug. See you in 3 weeks, Mom. Behave yourself. Have a good trip, son. Enjoy yourselves very much. They left in a black Uber at 4 in the afternoon. Flight at 8. I watched them move away through the window. Sam and Emily waved from the door. I waved too. When the car disappeared around the corner, I closed the door. I took a deep breath, and then I dialed Mr. Stevens' number. They are gone. Proceed with everything. That night, while the kids slept, I started packing my things. Not everything, only the essentials. What was truly mine. The photographs of Robert, my Singer sewing machine from '76, the shawl my grandmother knitted for me, the love letters Robert wrote me for 42 years, my Bible, my silver rosary. Ryan's baby teeth that I kept in a little wooden box. Everything fit into 3 medium suitcases. On Wednesday, Mr. Peterson visited the house. A man of about 50, elegant, serious. "It is perfect for my daughter," he said, walking through the rooms. "When can we close?" "Day after tomorrow," replied Mr. Stevens. "Excellent. I have the money ready." On Thursday, I received a message from Ryan from Paris, a photo at the Eiffel Tower. "Everything beautiful, Mom. How are the kids?" "Very well, son. Enjoy." On Friday, the sale was signed. I was there at the notary next to Mr. Stevens. Mr. Peterson signed. I signed as the creditor of the loan. The notary certified everything. Immediate bank transfer. $545,000 deposited into my new account that I opened a week before. I looked at the balance on the bank screen. $545,000. My money, my work, my life. Mr. Stevens handed me the new keys and the documents. The house has a new owner, Grace. Mr. Peterson will take possession on November 30th one day before your children return. Perfect. I left the notary with a weight off my chest and with absolute certainty in my heart. For the first time in 3 years, I was the owner of my own life again. What would Grace do with the children? How would she organize her disappearance without hurting the innocent? And what letter would she leave for Ryan that would break his heart? On Saturday morning, a week after Ryan and Valerie left, I called my sister Hazel. Hazel was 71 years old. She lived in Ohio with her husband Morris. We'd always been close, but since I moved in with Ryan, we barely saw each other. Valerie never invited her. She said my sister was too nosy. "Grace, what a surprise," answered Hazel. "I thought the earth had swallowed you. I need to ask you for something important. Can you come to the city this weekend? It is urgent." There was silence. "Then are you okay? Is it your health?" "I am perfect, better than ever. But I need your help." Hazel arrived on Sunday afternoon. She brought her small suitcase and that look I knew since we were girls, the look that said we are going to fix this whatever it is. I made coffee. We sat in the kitchen while Sam and Emily played in the garden with the dogs. I told her everything, every word, the telephone conversation, the years of humiliation, the legal plan, the sale of the house. Hazel listened to me without interrupting. When I finished, she took my hand across the table. "And the kids. That is why I called you." I explained my plan. Sam and Emily were not to blame for anything. They were innocent. But I could not stay watching them after disappearing. I needed someone trusted. "Hazel, I need you to watch them for these 2 weeks that are left. I will pay all your expenses. I will give you $5,000 for food, transportation, whatever you need. But I need you to be here with them until Ryan and Valerie return." My sister squeezed my hand. "And you, I leave tomorrow. I already found an apartment in Georgetown furnished pretty with a terrace and a view of the trees. That is where I will start my new life." Hazel looked at me with shining eyes. "Grace, I am proud of you. You took your time, but you finally woke up." That night, after putting the children to bed, I explained it to them carefully. "Sam, Emily, Grandma has to go on a trip. But your Aunt Hazel is going to stay with you until Mom and Dad come back." Sam looked at me with those brown eyes identical to Ryan's when he was a boy. "Where are you going, Grandma?" "To resolve important things, my love. But I love you very much. Never forget that." Emily hugged her stuffed bunny. "Are you coming back?" I knelt in front of her. I stroked the blonde hair she inherited from Valerie. "I will always be there for you when you really need me. But I need to do something for me now." I hugged them tight. They smelled of baby soap and cookies. My heart squeezed, but I did not cry. They did not have to carry the weight of their parents' mistakes. On Monday morning, while Hazel made breakfast for the kids, I packed the last of it. My 3 suitcases were ready in my room. Mr. Stevens had sent a discreet moving truck. It arrived at 9. 2 uniformed men loaded my things in 15 minutes. I walked through the house one last time. The living room with the gray sofa I chose, the pine dining table where we passed so many silent dinners, the kitchen where I prepared thousands of meals that no one appreciated, the garden where I planted mint and rosemary. I did not feel nostalgia. I felt liberation. Before leaving, I took a manila envelope out of my purse. Inside was a letter. I had written it the night before with my best handwriting on ivory-colored paper. I left it on the dining room table right in the center, impossible to ignore. On the envelope I wrote, "To Ryan." Inside it said, "Son, when you read this letter, I will no longer be here." Do not look for explanations in other people. The answer is in your own heart. 3 years ago, I gave you $500,000 because I believed we were building a home together. But you built a prison where I was the invisible servant. I heard your wife say that I am a burden. I heard her plans for when I died. And the most painful thing, I heard you stay silent. Your silence was worse than her words. This house has just been sold. Regarding the money, I recovered what was mine by right and by law. The legal documents are with my lawyer, Mr. Stephen Roberts. He will explain everything to you. I did not seek you out to say goodbye because I no longer recognize the man you became. The boy I raised would have defended me. The boy I hugged when he was afraid would not have left me alone at a birthday table without cake. I do not hate you, Ryan, but I also cannot continue loving you from humiliation. Your children remain in the care of your Aunt Hazel until you return. She knows everything, and believe me, the family does too. I hope the photographs of Paris were worth more than the years your mother invested in loving you. Take care, and learn to take care of what matters before it disappears. Your mother, Grace Montgomery. P.S. Burdens do not weigh anything where they are not wanted. A free woman did this. I folded the letter, sealed it, and left it there. Helen walked me to the door. Are you sure you do not want to say goodbye to the kids? I already did that last night. I do not want them to see me cry. My sister hugged me tight. Call me every day, and if Ryan gets difficult when he comes back, I will handle him. I know you will. I got into the Uber that was waiting for me outside. The driver loaded my 3 suitcases. Where to, ma'am? 134 Amsterdam Avenue, the historic district. The car started. I looked out the rear window. The house became small, then it disappeared. I did not look back again. 40 minutes later, we arrived at my new home. A 3-story building. Terracotta facade balconies with blooming flowers. Apartment 2, B, 2nd floor. The owner, Mr. Wilson, was waiting for me with the keys. Mrs. Green, welcome. The apartment is ready. 2 bedrooms, a full kitchen living room with a large window just like I showed you in the photos. I walked in. Hardwood floors, white walls, natural light pouring generously through the windows, a small balcony overlooking the trees on the street. It was perfect. It was mine. It was peace. That afternoon, I unpacked slowly. I placed Robert's photographs in the living room, my sewing machine in the corner by the window, the books I had not been able to read in years. For the first time in 3 years, I made coffee just for myself. I sat on the balcony. The air smelled of freshly baked bread from the bakery on the corner. I closed my eyes, and I smiled. Meanwhile, 5,000 miles away, Ryan and Valerie were walking around Barcelona. They were posting photos on Instagram, eating fancy dinners by the sea, buying expensive souvenirs without knowing that their perfect world was about to collapse. Because in exactly 13 days, they would try to put their key into a lock that no longer belonged to them, and they would find an empty house and a letter that would change everything. How would Helen react when Ryan finally returned and discovered the truth? What would the extended family say when they found out about everything? And would Grace really be at peace, or was the hardest blow still to come? The 13 days that followed were the strangest of my life. Strange, because for the first time in decades, I did not have a schedule to keep. No one woke me up at 6 in the morning demanding coffee. No one left dirty dishes waiting for me to wash them. No one ignored me while I existed only to serve. The first day in my apartment in the district, I spent it in silence. I walked barefoot on the hardwood floors. I opened every window. I let the sun come in without permission. I made chamomile tea and drank it sitting on the balcony, watching people walk down the street without rushing. No one needed me, and that I discovered was not loneliness. It was freedom. On the second day, I went out to explore my new neighborhood, the Hope Bakery on the corner. Mr. Miller, the baker, was 70 years old and had hands that smelled of butter and cinnamon. "First time around here, ma'am?" he asked me while I chose croissants and danishes. "First time living here," I replied. "I just moved in." "Welcome to the neighborhood. Here we all take care of each other." Those words hit me deep. We all take care of each other, something my own family forgot to do. Helen called me twice a day. She told me how Sam and Emily were doing. The kids were fine. They missed their parents, but Helen kept them busy with parks, museums, movies. "Have they asked about me?" I asked her one afternoon. "Every day. I tell them you are working on something very important that they will understand soon." On the 5th day, I received a message from Ryan from Rome, a photo at the Colosseum. "Mom, I hope everything is okay. The kids must miss us. Tell them we brought them gifts." I did not reply immediately. I stared at the photo. Ryan smiling, tanned, carefree. Valerie beside him with Gucci sunglasses and a white dress. Finally, I wrote, "The kids are perfect. Enjoy." A lie. The kids were not with me. But he did not need to know that either, not yet. On the 8th day, I met my neighbors, Mrs. Higgins from 1A and Claire from 3B. Mrs. Higgins was 82 years old. She lived alone and made the best apple pie in the neighborhood. Claire was 40, she was divorced and worked as a graphic designer from home. We drank coffee together in the building's common patio. "Do you have family here?" asked Claire. "I used to," I replied, and I said no more. They understood. There are silences that speak more than 1,000 explanations. On the 10th day, Mr. Stevens summoned me to his office. "Grace, everything is ready. The engineer, Mr. Matthews, takes possession of the house on November 30th. He changed all the locks this morning. He left the house completely empty just as we agreed. Your letter is still on the dining room table. And Ryan has not tried to contact you." "No, he still believes everything is normal." "Perfect." On the 12th day, Helen called me upset. "Grace, Ryan texted me. He is asking if you are okay. He says you are not answering his messages as usual." "What did you tell him?" "That you were a little sick. Nothing serious. That you should rest." "Good. Let him keep believing that." On the 13th day, the day before they returned, I did something I had not done in years. I went to the beauty salon. I cut my hair. No more of the tight gray bun that Valerie said looked decent. Now I had a modern cut shoulder length with layers that framed my face. I bought new clothes, nothing luxurious, but clothes that I chose. Colorful blouses, a pair of jeans, a red sweater that made me feel alive. When I saw myself in the boutique mirror, I almost did not recognize myself. I was 68 years old, but my eyes shone in a way they had not shone since Robert died. "You look beautiful," said the sales clerk. "I feel free," I replied. That night, the last one before they returned, I sat on my balcony with a glass of red wine, something I never allowed myself in Ryan's house because Valerie said that older ladies should not drink. I made a toast alone. To Robert, who taught me that dignity is not negotiable. To Helen, who came without questions. To Mr. Stevens, who believed in my right to take back what was mine. And to me, to the Grace who was asleep for 3 years and finally woke up. At 11 at night, Helen called me one last time. They arrive tomorrow. Flight lands at 3 in the afternoon. They will get to the house around 6. Are you ready? More than ready. I have a lot of things to say to your son. Don't be too hard on him, Helen. He is my nephew after all. Precisely for that reason, because he is your son and he forgot what that means. I hung up. I lay down in my new bed. Cotton sheets that I chose. Soft pillows. Absolute silence. For the first time in 3 years, I slept through the night without waking up, without nightmares, without anxiety, without knots in my stomach. The next morning, December 1st, I woke up with the sun coming through the window. I made coffee, toast with strawberry jam. I sat on the balcony, and I waited. I knew that at some point that day my phone would ring, Ryan would call, perhaps Valerie would scream, perhaps there would be tears, fury, desperation, but I would no longer be there to console, to explain, to justify myself. I had left a letter. I had left the truth on the table. Now it was their turn to carry the consequences of 3 years of contempt. I looked at my cell phone. I changed my number last week. Only Helen, Mr. Stevens, and 2 friends from my old book club had it. Ryan would not be able to call me, not at least until Helen decided to give him my new contact. And that is if she decided to give it to him. Because for the first time in my life, I controlled who had access to me. I decided who deserved my time, my energy, my presence. And a son who treated me like a burden for 3 years would have to earn the right to hear my voice again. I finished my coffee, washed my cup, and went out to walk the streets of the district like what I was, a 68-year-old woman who had just reclaimed her life and who had no intention of giving it away again. What would Ryan and Valerie find when they arrived at the house? How would they react when the key did not fit in the lock? And what would Helen tell them when they faced the reality of what they had lost? Ryan and Valerie landed at the international airport at 3:47 in the afternoon. I know because Helen sent me a message. They just landed. In an hour they will be at the house. Let the show begin. I made myself another coffee, sat on my balcony, and waited. Ryan was driving the rental car they had left in the airport parking lot. Valerie was next to him showing Instagram photos to her friends on WhatsApp. 6 huge suitcases in the trunk. Gifts, souvenirs, new clothes. "I cannot wait to take a bath and sleep in my bed," said Valerie, stretching. 3 weeks is too much time away. "The kids must be crazy to see us," added Ryan, smiling. "I am sure my mom has them well spoiled." They arrived at the house at 5:20 in the afternoon. The sun was beginning to hide behind the maple trees. The street was quiet. Ryan parked the car in front of the driveway. He took down the suitcases while Valerie checked her makeup in the car mirror. "Why are there no lights on?" asked Valerie, looking toward the house. "Maybe they are in the backyard," replied Ryan, carrying 2 heavy suitcases. They went up the front steps. Ryan took out his key. He put it in the lock. It did not go in. He frowned. He tried again. Nothing. "What is wrong?" asked Valerie. "The key does not go in right." Ryan forced it a little. Maybe something got stuck. He tried 5 more times. The key simply did not turn. It was as if the lock was different. "Ring the doorbell," ordered Valerie, beginning to get impatient. Ryan pressed the doorbell. Once, twice, 3 times. No one opened. "Where is your mother?" Valerie's voice went up an octave. "Where are the kids?" Ryan took out his cell phone. He dialed my number. "The number you have dialed is not available." He tried again. The same message. "She is not answering." Panic began to seep into his voice. "Her phone is off." Valerie started banging on the door. "Grace, open the door. Grace." Absolute silence. Ryan walked toward the windows. He pressed his face against the glass, trying to see inside. The curtains were open. The living room was empty, completely empty. There was no sofa. There was no coffee table. There were no paintings. There was nothing. "Valerie." Ryan's voice trembled. "Come see this." She ran toward the window. She looked inside. Her face turned pale. "What? Where is everything?" They ran toward the dining room window, also empty. Toward the kitchen, empty. The entire house was completely uninhabited. "This does not make sense," shouted Valerie. "Call the police. We were robbed. Your mom—" She stopped. Her eyes opened wide. Ryan, what if something happened to your mom? What if they were mugged? What if… What? Ryan was already dialing another number. Aunt Helen. She answered on the third ring. Hello, Aunt Helen. This is Ryan. We are at the house and we do not understand anything. Where is my mom? Where are the kids? The house is empty. And the kids are with me, interrupted Helen with a calm voice. I am at a cafe 3 blocks from your house. Come get them and prepare yourself, Ryan. Why? Because we have a lot to talk about. She hung up. Ryan and Valerie looked at each other. Confusion, fear, something darker beginning to form. They drove the 3 blocks like zombies. They arrived at the corner cafe. Inside, at a table by the window, Sam and Emily were coloring. Helen was drinking tea calmly. The children saw their parents and ran to hug them. Dad, Mom, we missed you so much. Ryan hugged his children tightly, but his eyes were fixed on Helen. Aunt, what is happening? Helen stood up slowly. She left money on the table. She took her purse. Let's go to the house. It is time you knew the truth. The 5 of them returned to the house. Helen took a key out of her purse, a new key that Mr. Matthews had given her under Mr. Stevens' instructions. Where did you get that key? Asked Valerie with a shrill voice. Helen did not answer. She simply opened the door. They entered. The house was absolutely empty. Their footsteps echoed against the bare floors. There were no curtains. There was no furniture. There was no life. In the dining room on the hardwood floor, there was a manila envelope. Ryan saw it. He walked toward it as if hypnotized. He picked it up with trembling hands. For Ryan. His mother's handwriting. Unmistakable. He opened the envelope. He took out the letter. He began to read out loud. With every word, his face broke down more. Valerie read over his shoulder. Her expression went from confusion to shock to absolute horror. When Ryan finished reading, he dropped the letter. No, this cannot be real. It is completely real, said Helen with a firm voice. Your mother sold the house, recovered her investment, and left. And do you know why? Because you treated her like garbage for 3 years. She could not sell the house, shouted Valerie. The house is in our name. This is illegal. It is completely legal, replied Helen. Grace contributed $400,000. She has all the bank transfers, all the messages where Ryan promised that the house would be for the family. A judge determined that she had the right to recover her loan. The house was sold. It is over. Ryan let himself fall to the floor, literally. His legs did not hold him anymore. Where is my mom? I do not know, and even if I knew, I would not tell you. Helen crossed her arms. Do you know what she told me when she called me 2 weeks ago? She told me she heard your wife call her an unbearable burden, that she heard her plans for when she died. And the worst of all, Ryan, that she heard you stay silent. Ryan looked up. Tears ran down his face. I did not know she had heard. So it is true. Helen took a step forward. Is it true that you planned to sell the house when she died? That you were only waiting for nature to do its job? Silence. Valerie covered her face with her hands. Ryan could not look his aunt in the eyes. My God, Helen shook her head. You are worse than I thought. Where are we going to live? Sobbed Valerie. We have no house. We spent all the money on the trip. The credit cards are at the limit. You should have thought about that before treating my sister like a servant in a house that she paid for. Helen walked toward the door. She stopped. She looked at Ryan one last time. Your mother loved you more than you deserved, and you paid her with contempt. I hope the photographs of Europe were worth it, because you just lost the only thing that really mattered. She walked out. The door closed behind her with a hollow echo. Ryan stayed on the floor, hugging his knees, crying like he had not cried since he was a child. Valerie paced from one side to the other, going into panic, calculating, thinking of solutions that did not exist. Sam and Emily hugged each other in a corner, scared without understanding why Daddy was crying, and Mommy was screaming, and the house was empty. And miles away on a balcony in the city, I was drinking my coffee calmly. My cell phone vibrated. Message from Helen. Mission accomplished. You should have seen their faces. I already gave your new address to Mr. Stevens in case Ryan insists on contacting you, but the decision to answer is yours alone. I smiled. I watched the sunset painting the sky orange and purple, and for the first time in years, I breathed without weight on my chest, because justice, I discovered, does not always come with thunder and lightning. Sometimes it arrives silently, like a key that no longer fits, like an empty house, like a mother who finally said enough. Would Ryan try to look for his mother? What would the extended family say when they found out about the scandal and Grace? Would she be ready to face her son if he managed to find her? The following days were a silent earthquake that shook the whole family. Helen did not keep quiet. It was not her style. She called every uncle, every cousin, every acquaintance of the Green family. She told them everything, every detail, every humiliation, every cruel word that Valerie had said and that Ryan had allowed. They need to know what kind of people they are, she told me on the phone that night. They need to know that your son forgot where he comes from. 3 days after the return, Ryan received a call from his uncle Julian Robert's brother. Is it true what Helen says? Is it true that your mother sold the house because you treated her like a servant? Ryan tried to explain, justify, soften, but Uncle Julian interrupted him with a voice of steel. Your father would be ashamed of you. Grace was the best wife, the best mother, and you paid her back like this. Do not call me again until you fix what you broke. He hung up. Cousin Veronica, who was always close to me, posted in the family WhatsApp group. I just spoke with Aunt Grace. She is fine, she is happy, and she is exactly where she deserves to be. Far from those who did not know how to value her. Ryan. Valerie. You should feel ashamed. Valerie read the message and threw her cell phone against the wall. The screen shattered into 1,000 pieces. Valerie's parents, Mr. Arnold and Mrs. Patricia, also found out. Mr. Arnold called Ryan. You are telling me that your mother contributed almost $500,000 and you treated her like a housekeeper, and that Valerie spoke badly of her on the phone. Father-in-law, I did not know my mom had heard. That is not the point, shouted Mr. Arnold. The point is that you did it. My daughter behaved in a shameful manner, and you allowed it. I am not surprised your mother left. Mrs. Patricia was worse. She arrived at the rented apartment where Ryan and Valerie now lived, a small, ugly place in a rough area, which was the only thing they could afford with the little they had left, and she confronted her daughter face to face. How could you, Valerie? How could you be so ungrateful? That woman opened her home to you, took care of your children, and you called her a burden. Valerie was crying. I did not think she was going to hear. I was just venting. Venting? Mrs. Patricia slapped her, a dry slap that echoed in the small apartment. I did not raise you to be cruel. I did not raise you to use people. You disgust me. She left without looking back. Valerie locked herself in the bathroom and cried for 2 hours. Ryan, meanwhile, was destroyed. He did not sleep. He barely ate. He woke up in the middle of the night with panic attacks. At work, his performance dropped. His boss called him to his office. Ryan, I need you to focus. We are 3 projects behind because of you. I am sorry, sir. It is just that I am going through a difficult time. We all go through difficult times, but work is work. If you cannot handle it, maybe you need to take some time off. Some time off, without pay, without income, with a rented apartment that cost $2,000 a month, with 2 kids in private school, with credit card debts that reached $20,000 for the trip to Europe. Ryan walked out of that office feeling like the world was closing in on him. That night, he tried to talk to Valerie. We need to sell the car. It is the only thing of value we have left. And how are we going to move around? On the bus, on the subway, like most people. Valerie looked at him with contempt. This is your fault. If you had controlled your mother... Something inside Ryan exploded. Control my mother? She contributed almost $500,000. She gave us a home and we treated her like garbage. You treated her like garbage and I let you. Because you are a coward, shouted Valerie. You have always been a coward. You cannot defend your wife. You cannot defend your mother. You cannot defend anything. They looked at each other in silence. In that moment, Ryan saw his wife clearly for the first time in years, and he did not like what he saw. I think I made a mistake, said Ryan in a low voice. What mistake? Choosing you over my mother. Valerie slapped him. Ryan did not move. He simply looked at her. That is all you are right. It screams poison. He took his jacket and left the apartment. He walked aimlessly for hours through the city streets. He passed in front of restaurants where he used to have dinner with Valerie, spending hundreds of dollars. He passed in front of boutiques where she bought ridiculously expensive handbags, all paid for with the money from the house that his mother bought. Finally, he stopped in front of a payphone. He dialed Mr. Stevens' number. Mr. Stevens, this is Ryan Green. I am Grace's son. I need to speak with you. Mr. Stevens summoned him to his office the next day. Ryan arrived on time, disheveled, dark circles under his eyes, 40 pounds thinner in 3 weeks. What can I do for you, young man? Asked Mr. Stevens without warmth. I need to see my mom. I need to ask for her forgiveness. Your mother does not want to see you. Ryan felt as if they were stabbing him with a knife. Please, just let me explain to her. Explain what? Mr. Stevens leaned back in his chair. That you heard your wife call her a burden and said nothing, that you planned to keep her money and wait for her to die, that you humiliated her for 3 years. There is no explanation that justifies that, Ryan. I know. Tears ran down Ryan's face. I know, I was a bad son, the worst son, but I need her to know that I regret it. I would give anything to turn back time. Mr. Stevens took an envelope out of his drawer. This is from your mother. She left it to me in case you came. Ryan opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside there was a sheet, a few lines, his mother's handwriting. Ryan, if you are reading this, it is because you finally decided to look for me. I am not going to receive you. Not yet. Perhaps never. Not because I hate you, but because I need to protect myself. Because I spent 68 years taking care of others, and I forgot to take care of myself. If you really want to recover something of what you lost, start by looking at yourself in the mirror. By asking yourself how you managed to become the man who allows his mother to be humiliated. By asking yourself if the values that your father and I taught you meant anything. My grandchildren matter to me. If they want to see me over time, maybe I will allow it. But you have a lot to learn about what family means. Mom. Ryan folded the letter. He put it in his pocket. He stood up without saying a word. He left the office. On the street under the December sun, he leaned against a wall. And he cried. He cried for the mother he lost, for the man he ceased to be, for the years he could not recover. But above all, he cried because he knew his mother was right, and that he deserved every second of this pain. Meanwhile, I was in a coffee shop in the district with my new friends, Mrs. Higgins and Claire. We were laughing. We were telling stories. We were planning to go to the theater on the weekend. My cell phone vibrated. Message from Mr. Stevens. Your son came. I gave him your letter. He cried. He left. The decision remains yours. I put the cell phone away. I drank my coffee, and I kept laughing with my friends, because for the first time in years, my happiness did not depend on being needed. It depended on being free. Would anything change in Ryan after hitting rock bottom? Would Grace find a space for forgiveness in her heart? Or would this story end with a permanent separation that would leave scars on the whole family? 6 months passed. 6 months in which my life changed in ways I never imagined possible at 68 years old. I enrolled in watercolor classes at the community center. I discovered that I had a talent for painting landscapes. My paintings were not masterpieces, but they were mine. Every brushstroke was a decision that I made. No one told me how, when, or why. I joined a book club. We read the classics, biographies, modern fiction. We discussed for hours in cafes that smelled of sweet bread and coffee. I laughed until my stomach hurt, something I had not done since Robert was alive. Mrs. Higgins taught me to crochet. Claire taught me to use social media. I opened an Instagram account. I uploaded photos of my paintings of my balcony with flowers of the sunsets from my window. 300 followers in 2 months. People who commented, "How beautiful, you inspire me. I wish I had your courage." Courage. That word made me smile. I did not feel brave, I just felt alive. I invested my money wisely. Mr. Stevens recommended a financial advisor. My $500,000 were well distributed. A part in bonds, another in conservative investment funds, another in a high-yield savings account. Every month I received returns of approximately $3,000. Added to my Social Security of $1,000, I had $4,000 a month. I was not rich, but I was independent. And that independence was worth more than all the Gucci bags in the world. Ryan tried to contact me 7 times in those 6 months. 3 handwritten letters that Mr. Stevens delivered to me without opening them. I read them all. In each one, Ryan apologized. He cried with words. He told me how much he missed me, how much he regretted it. In the last letter, he told me that he had separated from Valerie. "Mom, I finally saw who she really was. I saw her poison. I saw how she manipulated me for years. It is not a justification for what I did to you, but I need you to know that I woke up. Late, but I woke up." He also told me that they sold the car, that he was going to therapy, that Sam asked about me every night. Emily drew a portrait of you at school. She titled it, "My Brave Grandma." I have it stuck on the refrigerator. It is the only beautiful thing in this ugly apartment where we live now. Those words hit me deep, but I did not reply. Not yet. In May, 6 months after my disappearance, I received a call from Helen. "Grace, I need you to know something. Ryan is different. He comes to see me every week. He brings the kids. He cleans my house without me asking him. He helps me with the groceries, and he talks about you all the time." What does he say? That he was an idiot? That he lost the most important person in his life? That he would give anything for a chance to show you that he changed? I sighed. People do not change, Helen. No, they do not change, but they can grow. And I think Ryan is growing. Late, painfully, but he is growing. I hung up thoughtful. That night, on my balcony with a glass of wine and the sound of the crickets, I made a decision. I wrote a letter to Ryan, the first direct communication in 6 months. "Ryan, I have read your letters, all of them, and I know you regret it. But regret is easy when you already lost everything. The hard part is changing when you still have options. I do not know if one day we will be able to rebuild what broke. I do not know if you will ever have a mother like the one I was again, because that woman died the day I heard your wife call me a burden. But I know that my grandchildren are not to blame, and I know that they need me. Next Saturday at 11 in the morning, I will be at the city park by the fountain. You can bring Sam and Emily, only them. If you come, I will leave. This is my condition. Take it or leave it. Mom." Saturday arrived. I got ready with care. An olive green dress that I bought the week before. My hair recently cut. A little makeup. I looked at myself in the mirror. I did not recognize the woman in the reflection, but I liked what I saw. I arrived at the park at 10:45. I sat on a bench by the fountain. The water ran with that sound that had always relaxed me. At 11 o'clock sharp, I saw 2 small figures running toward me. Grandma. Sam and Emily bigger. Sam had grown at least 2 inches. Emily was wearing a yellow dress with embroidered butterflies. I stood up. They crashed into me like two little hurricanes. I hugged them so tight that I could almost not breathe. They smelled of baby shampoo and cookies. I felt their little arms surrounding my waist. I felt their tears wetting my dress. "We missed you so much, Grandma," sobbed Sam. "I thought we would never see you again." "I am here, my love. I am here." Behind them, about 20 yards away, was Ryan. He did not come closer. He stayed there standing with his hands in his pockets, thinner, older, more tired. Our gazes met. I did not smile, but I did not look with hate either. I simply nodded, a small gesture that said, "Thank you for respecting it." He nodded back, and he turned around. He walked away. I sat on the bench with my grandkids. We spent 3 hours together. I bought them ice cream. They told me about school, about their new friends, about the small apartment where they now lived. "It is not as pretty as the old house," said Sam. "But Dad says that what is important is not where you live, but how you live." "Your dad is right," I replied. Emily showed me the drawing she had made. My brave grandma. It was me, with wings like an angel or a bird, flying over a house. I cried, but this time they were good tears. 2 months later in July, Ryan sent me his last letter. He did not ask for anything. He only told me about his life, that he had gotten a new job better paid, that he was saving, that the divorce with Valerie was in process, that he was going to therapy every week, that the kids were better. "I do not expect your forgiveness, Mom. I do not deserve it. But I want you to know that I learned the lesson, and that I am going to pass it on to my children. I am going to teach them that family takes care of each other, that older people deserve respect, not contempt, that love is not possession or convenience." Finally, he added, "Thank you for teaching me, even though you had to break me to do it." I kept that letter in a box next to Robert's letters, not as a sign of complete forgiveness, but as evidence that something finally had changed. Today, I am 69 years old. I live alone in my apartment in the district. I see my grandkids every other Saturday. Sometimes Ryan waves at me from afar. I nod, nothing more. I am not ready for a conversation yet. Perhaps I never will be. And that is okay, because I learned that forgiveness is not mandatory, that protecting your peace is more important than keeping up appearances, that saying no does not make you a bad person. I stood up. I recovered my money. I recovered my dignity. I recovered my life. And if that makes me selfish in the eyes of some, so be it, because I spent decades being selfless, generous, sacrificing. And in exchange, they called me a burden. Now I am free, and freedom, I discovered, does not weigh. It flies. This story is not just mine. It belongs to all the women who were once treated as invisible, to all the mothers who gave everything and received contempt, to all the older people that society discards as if their value had an expiration date. My name is Grace Green, and this is my story of how a burden decided to break free. Because true wealth is not in the houses you own. It is in the dignity that you do not allow them to take away from you. If this story touched your heart, if it made you reflect on how you treat the people who love you, leave me a comment telling me where you are watching us from. Like if you believe that dignity has no age. And subscribe to keep listening to life stories that remind us of what really matters. Because we all have a Grace in our family, and we can all choose to be Ryan or to be better. The decision is yours.